Sometimes I go out kissing people, 'cause I know in my head that
This will be good because last time I remember we were having, it was probably mostly my fault because I don't know how to do podcasts virtually.
It's okay. It was, yeah, doing it over Zoom is a little tough, which is what I did for like
a while
2
there.
years.
Yeah.
Or a year and a half, maybe.
And also, again, like you get to personalize the experience, have a setup.
Exactly. Yeah, you get to pick out an album. You picked out Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks.
I did.
Dude,
it's my favorite Dylan album. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but it's mine.
it's the one that I feel like maybe has the strongest hold on me. But to be honest, and I've said this a few times on the podcast, that I've yet to like really go through a strong Bob Dylan phase. And I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like a bad musician, singer, songwriter for like...
Shame on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think you've been dancing with it. It hasn't gripped you like maybe some other things have.
Yeah. The one that actually has got me more than anything else is one that I never hear anybody talk about, and that's New Morning.
Oh, that's a great record.
I think I just like that the songs are shorter.
Yeah.
He's like singing more instead of doing his classic.
Is that the one with the blue cover? Oh, that's the one where it's like a blonde cover, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a golden looking blonde.
And he's like
cover.
cool. He looks awesome.
Yeah. I love that one. But dude, Atticus Roness, thank you for coming in.
Roness.
That's what I thought, dude.
right.
But I thought somebody said Roness.
You just have to go with your gut. You knew the truth.
Yeah. All right, we're editing this. 3, 2, 1. Atticus Roness, dude, thank you for coming on the podcast, driving all the way from Atlanta.
Of course, Parker. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you on because not only is today the fateful day of your album release, Square One, but it's also the day of your album release show at Flickr in Athens, and you invited me to play with you on the bill. So thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also looking forward to talking about the album.
Parker, that was a great intro. That was awesome. You've been doing that before.
You've
done that before, yeah.
A few times, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I really screw up the intro. So
no, that was awesome.
Thank you.
That was perfect. You were like focused. You had a mission.
Yeah, other than messing up your last name, it was pretty much perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
it'll be a good show, I think, tonight. Yeah, man.
It will be. And you had a mini acoustic set in Atlanta last night, right? Like you invited all your friends to
Just an album release listening.
How did that go?
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Well, I wasn't even planning on playing.
Oh, really?
We were just going to listen to the album, but honestly, that we all know that wasn't going to happen. We were just going to play it in the background. Everybody's going to talk over it, especially this album.
Yes.
That I'm pointing at this album, but I'm talking about mine.
Right.
But on the tracks. Yeah, I just was like, a couple Trulies in. I was like, well, some of these people got to leave, got to work because it is a Thursday night. Mm-hmm. I was like, actually, one of my friends was like, you should just play a couple songs. So
yeah, why not?
Sure, and it turned out great. It was
and then like an hour later, you played the whole album.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you planning on playing the whole album tonight?
Yeah, I am going to play the whole thing. Because there's some piano songs, some guitar. I'm not particularly in order, but I think that makes it fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I love getting artists on the day of or like the day before the release of a project because there's a special energy that comes along with the proximity to the release day. Expectations are strange. But you're also excited for people to hear it, maybe a little nervous for people to hear it for the first time because you've lived with these songs for so long. So right now, currently, the day of your release, what are you feeling? What are you thinking about this album being out?
Well, I'm very excited that it's out. I'm proud of it. It's odd because like it's very vulnerable, kind of lyric heavy, which I've never done before. Not let its lyrics first or anything. The music's still the most important part, but it was a very raw. I guess I'll say that I think I had something to say on this record that I never really felt like I've had anything to say before. Like the other songs, they're great songs, but with the Corduroy Blue and whatever I've done before. But this record, I felt like there were things that if I didn't make these songs, I wouldn't be who I am. So it was like, to be a better person, human being, whatever, in my circle, in my life, in my day-to-day, these songs had to be made to figure myself out, figure out things. And so it's kind of, my buddy texted me and told me his review of the record and just felt like he said that he felt we were on the journey with me. He was on the journey with me. And So that was cool. But again, that's scary too. They're on this journey that I'm
Very vulnerable.
Very, yeah. A lot of things that are true. A lot of things I'm hyperbolizing.
Sure.
But a lot of things. I touch a lot of different subjects.
Yeah, it does feel like a journey, and it is interesting because your Corduroy Blue album, which everybody should go listen to, it rules.
Great record.
It's so much louder for the most part. Very dynamic and it hits very loud moments, and this album is much more stripped back. So is that always a conscious decision? Did at any point you think, oh, maybe I can take this a little further, let's add some drums, and then you're like, nah, let's keep it this vision?
It was super strategic, yeah. Because I wanted this to be an album where I played basically everything. Caleb.
Oh, you were playing everything.
Yeah, I played everything on this. Almost everything. Caleb Heiple, shout out to Caleb from Athens.
The Angelics.
He's awesome, dude. Without him, we couldn't have made this record. It turned out perfect. That day that we played at the Eastern all together, that was the first time I'd met him. And
oh wow, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, and then he and I were talking because that was a weird day because it was like the last TCB show and emotions were all over the place, and he texted me after. Honestly, I don't think this album would have happened if he hadn't texted me after because he texted me after and was like, hey man, I'd love to record you sometime, demos or whatever. We really were just thinking demos, and then coincide that with my Elliot Smith era, and I was like, well, actually, you could just probably make the album because the album I want to make is extremely stripped back, probably. And sure enough, me and Caleb became really good friends, and the process of doing that was very much like he and I were talking, and he wanted to add this or add that, and I was like, no, I wanted to play everything. I can't play drums, so I wanted to keep it all as stripped down as possible, and he did come in with the shaker here and there. He did play that, and we needed those at points. So I'm glad that he pushed a little bit.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with a little shaker.
No, there wasn't. Actually made a huge difference, I think.
Yeah.
It was definitely helpful. Because percussion is nice, but I didn't want drums specifically. Also, thematically, Luke was the drummer of the Corduroy Blue,
sure.
And now we're going separate ways artistically. I wanted that to be a conscious choice that there isn't drums in this because he's not in this project.
I got you.
He loves this project. He likes this better than TCB, but I think that's just because he's away from it a little bit.
Maybe, yeah, true. When you're so close to something, you have a different, just a different perspective on it.
Definitely.
And when you're not super involved, you can almost have that separation and just appreciate the art for what it is.
He probably also just heard these songs less, like once you've heard these songs, you've rehearsed these songs, getting ready for the studio. He was probably just more pleasantly surprised by like, oh, this is an awesome song that I had nothing to do with.
True.
That I get to just enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was very conscious with Caleb to make that happen. And again, like he did add some really cool things, and there's a harmony of his in there somewhere on Fog Dance, I think. It's like some high one, but yeah, it was very specific to not have drums, make it quiet. I wanted it to, you could hear a pin drop when we're making some of these songs.
Right. Yeah, they are very quiet, very intimate. Feels like you're whispering in my ear. It's nice.
Yeah, I have that whisper tone in there with the double track vocals.
And I was listening today, just driving back and forth, getting coffee, and it really dawned on me. I'm like, this is the perfect time to release this album because it does feel like a very fall, early winter vibes, fireside, drinking hot cocoa, the whole deal.
With the boys,
yeah.
Or girls,
with the boys.
Or thems.
Yeah, hot cocoa with the boys. How you do?
Dude, I need some of that in my life.
You mentioned that this is much more lyric heavy, for sure. What about that? Like, what was that experience like, really diving into lyrics? Because for me, recently, I've been trying to get better at being very confident in each lyric and each line and being able to stand by it. And when you hold yourself accountable to that, I think you can realize how much you could cut corners. And it can be hard to like hold yourself accountable to that. So how was your experience writing these lyrics?
Yeah, that is very difficult, I would say. And I'm really not good at it. Like I'm really like my natural state is to just write about whatever. And like just have a good, that's the melody. And then
exactly.
I have to put words to this so it can be a song.
Totally.
That's kind of how it feels to me. But this wasn't, I didn't plan this, relationships were changing for me and jobs were changing. And, the band broke up a lot. My whole life 2 years ago or a year and a half ago to now is like every aspect of it is different. Every single aspect, where I live, who I'm hanging out with, everything is different. And I didn't at the time, a year and a half ago, whatever it was, you never think when you're in a season, you kind of are like, this is my life. You know what I mean? And you kind of own that, you own your routine, whatever. So, when everything flipped, it was just like, I needed to just talk about it. And you can't plan that. Like, that's when the songs are good or whatever, is when you're not thinking about it. You're just doing it. It's the 30-minute song that you just randomly put together. That's always the good one. Not the one where you're like, I'm going to sit down and write a song. That one never turns out as good, in my opinion. So this was just moments like that. I would hear like Fog Dance. I heard the guitar in my head one night and just wrote it out and had a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Like untapped feelings about some relationships that I hadn't written about, that I needed to write about. And that wasn't a conscious decision. I just needed to get that out. So What and Fog Dance are two examples of that.
With the those kinds of songs and those kinds of lyrics, doing those untapped moments, does it feel like you're finally putting into words something you've always known, or just something that is almost like you didn't even know, and then this song clarified it?
It's more the second thing, I think, because that's a good point. Like specifically, So What is a good example of that. There are things when I listen back to that song, I'm like, I didn't even know I was thinking that, or the way that I even that song I like because it's a juxtaposition in a lot of ways. Like I'm going back and forth. I don't really know what I want, essentially, and some of that I didn't know that I felt. I didn't know that I was so torn in that season, or I was so torn about these emotions, because you just kind of live and you kind of own your emotions, or you own wherever you're at. I had no idea that I had so much nuance, that I was, there's so much nuance about that particular situation I was writing about. Had no idea that I felt all those things. So yeah, they came out in words that was like, what's the line specifically in that song that, I don't know. There's something at the end of the song, right before the chorus or whatever at the end, that I always listen to. And I'm like, that's a cool thought or line or whatever that I didn't even think about.
Right. It just sort of happened.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It was awesome
when that happens.
That's what music though, right? It's like, it's more than us. It just is like music and notes and melody and lyrics.
Yeah.
It's more than.
I always think about it like you have a radio antenna, and sometimes, a lot of times, it's like just nothing but static. And then every once in a while, something pops in and you're like, oh shit, I got to write this down before it goes away.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be more patient about not forcing the thing to be a 30-minute writing song. You know what I mean? Because that's awesome when that happens. But my roommate, shout out to Tony, he was saying, you can treat it like a painting. People come back to paintings. They don't typically, start one and finish one in a day. It's okay to come back to it. And I'm like, but what if I don't get it all done right now? What if I lose that inspiration? Yeah. It's so hard to feel peaceful about letting it go for a moment.
Right. I think there's something to be said for just like, I feel like our guts are very strong as musicians. Usually, like you can tell. I mean, we've all been there where you're working on something and you just kind of know it's not good, or it's not. You just know.
It's not the next song you're gonna do.
No, exactly. But you do it anyways because you're in the middle of doing it. So I think when it comes to like the method to which you write, like, because there's sometimes where I think it's good, like you're just feeling it, you're flowing, the song is working, every part. Beasting the Flower Fall on my album, this one is a good example of that. I just started and every part, like I didn't have to stop. Like every part was just happening in front of me.
Whoa.
Then that never happens ever. But I was just like, that chord, that chord. Like I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't writing it down. It just all happened. And that song's really short, so it worked out really well. But I think it's also good, to your point, to have an idea, like the idea. It's not working right now. Come back to it. Because maybe if it's a good enough idea, to Tony's point, if it's a good enough idea, it'll be there when you get back.
Exactly. And sometimes it benefits, the same way like a whiskey or a wine or something is more valuable if it's given that
over time
to age.
Right. And this is getting heady, but like sometimes you're not ready to write that yet.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like maybe you're not in a place, or you're not musically in that space right now.
Right. I think for me that usually comes with the lyrical side of things. Like I just can't quite tap into the lyrics that are maybe mature enough for that moment, and that you have to just live your life for another couple of years before you can even come back to that and see it with a fresh perspective and offer to it what it deserves. And I think it does help for me to think about these songs as beings, almost like these living beings, and you should treat them with that respect. It doesn't always happen like that, you know. So it's hard to practice patience in that way.
Yeah.
Were there any songs that did not make the album that you were really hoping would?
Well, again, like, and you probably know this too, like writing for me happens in phases and spurts. Like it's not like something I'm just like, oh, I have like my 3 songs a week.
Right.
You know,
yeah, my quota.
My quota for the week. It doesn't work like that. Like this album, like, you know, I've been writing songs for years, and like there's good songs. And also we're always like thinking we're going to have this plan, that plan, and things don't work out. So like there were songs that I've planned to do an acoustic album, you know, years ago. And there were songs like, there was like a whole double album, like 30 songs that I had that are all good acoustic songs. But then I got older, and the band, I kind of thought that was a TCB thing. And then the band broke up, and I was like, well, I'm not going to try and make those work if they don't. I'm going to write new ones because I'm feeling a different way now. And that's no shade to those songs. Like you said, they're kind of like beings. I sometimes feel guilty. Like I've had you forever. I wanted to utilize you in some way, and I never got around to it.
But sometimes they pop up
sometimes
later on.
Right, exactly. Then that's true. And there's definitely going to be some like that. Like, for example, almost all these songs are like from this March. I wrote them like 2 months before we started recording, almost all of them. Except for there's one like last November, but then there's one like Treat Me Different. It's from like 2 years ago.
Whoa.
And I don't know why I picked that one to be on here. I think it just fit the vibe or whatever. And I've always really liked that song. So that's a good example of it. Whereas like that song's could have made the TCB album, you know, and it didn't. And then it made this instead.
It does have, now that you say that one does in particular, because I was listening to that today, and that one stuck out to me as like this Beatles-y tune.
Yeah.
And it had more of that old school songwriting structure, although the instrumentation matched perfectly with everything else,
100%.
you know. But that is the one with more electric guitar, right?
Yep.
Maybe that's also partly why I thought that.
Well, it sounds also not only that, because it is a TCB session, whatever. That's like it's got that brighter. It's one of the brighter songs too.
Right.
Like
totally.
A lot of the other songs on this album are either tuned down a half step, or, you know, I'm playing, you know, minor chords or whatever. That song's like all major, all very sunshine.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't even think about that part of it, but that does make sense. How did you decide what songs were going to be? Because it is pretty much piano and guitar. Those are the 2 main instruments other than your vocals. How did you decide which ones were going to be what? Well,
I always know that I like the piano being a huge part of what I do. It's a little less now than it was with TCB in terms of like my live practice. Just because I don't, honestly, the truth is I just don't want to lug the piano around all the time. It's just easier to pull out the guitar. It just is. But tonight I'm bringing the piano, obviously.
Sweet.
But there are some times like where I'm just not doing that. And I feel bad for those 4 songs that maybe don't get to get played, like One of a Kind, Square One, The Music Has Ruined My Life, and Honky Tonky. But
Square One, the album title, not getting
exactly
the live play as much as funny.
I'll play it on the guitar, I guess, but I know it's crazy. But I knew I wanted those piano songs in there because that's like it's a huge part of me, writing, sitting at the piano, writing those that way. But I did want it to be more guitar focused. In general, me as a solo artist, I want it to be a little more guitar focused, I think, because a lot of times when people would see TCB, the piano seemed to be a focus. Like people would come up to me a lot and be like, you know, Elton John vibes or whatever. I've heard that many a time.
The big glasses maybe added to that.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Billy Joel, Elton John. So I kind of wanted to get away from those comparisons a little bit, just to try something different. And so that played a huge part, like purposely wanting to write songs that were different than TCB. And I kind of, you know, I found Elliot Smith, Bob Dylan, some different things. That I was just like, you know, I want to write this more for this. And then to your point earlier, you were talking about like the right time to release this. I was thinking about that. Like, this will be a fall thing. I think that cozy, melancholy, intimate vibe was kind of what I wanted. So I kind of just like, I sent Caleb, like there was like 20 songs that I was totally down to make. And he gave me his thoughts and picked his favorites, and we kind of had the same favorites. And then there's one or two there was one that we were going to like, there was one called Too Late. It's called, we'll probably make a demo of it or something, but, like the first session that we were in, so we split it up in 2 sessions. The first one, Too Late, was going to be on the second session. And then
you recorded it in only 2 sessions.
We recorded 2 weekends, I guess.
Okay.
It still was
like
all,
2 days to record.
It was 5 days for that though.
That's still not that many days.
No, we killed it. I mean, that was all Caleb though. I mean, he was great. But anyways, so Too Late was going to be on the second session, but I wrote the song May. I wrote it in the middle of the first session.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, well, this is better. So
sure,
we kicked out that other song and put that one in and did that on the second session.
Called an audible last minute.
We were
That's
like,
funny.
He was like, it was, again, with music, you just know.
Yeah.
And he heard me writing it. He was like, what is that? Is that one of them? I was like, no, I'm just writing. Yeah, exactly. He was like, I'll be honest. You should take out Too Late and put that one in. That's a better song. Nice. Caleb is very good about being on his feet. Like, hey, let's try this now.
That's good.
Like at this moment, or take that song out and do that song. He wasn't afraid to like challenge me in that way, push me, but also, hey, it's your record too.
Right.
So like, do what you want at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's something I'm always curious about is the producer-artist relationship, especially when it's like a one-on-one.
Right, and we barely knew each other before. So
yeah, that's even crazier.
Yeah.
So what about Caleb? We're just going to be blowing smoke up his ass for the next 5 minutes. What about him as a producer? Do you feel like were some really great qualities? Like, let's say somebody wants to work with a producer.
Right.
What are some qualities that they should look out for like a producer's that's going to work for them?
Caleb, I'll accept this, the compensation and cash check, whatever.
Yeah.
This is your cover
the
letter.
endorsement.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think he's just, first of all, he's a great dude. So it makes it easy to like be comfortable. And that's a huge thing for me. Like, I'm not the kind of guy that knows how to record his own stuff. I'm good at like arranging and this should go here, this should go here. We should pan it like that. I'm good at stuff like that. But I'm not comping things. I'm not, doing any of the laborious work.
Sure.
I like the fun stuff. And but he's got the engineer side of him that's good at that stuff, but also he's an artist himself. And it was just super helpful. And again, like his willingness to just try things. Or like respect me, especially on this record, because I was very specific on this. I think usually I'd be a little more open-minded, but because I knew I wanted it to be stripped down, and like some of these songs treat me different, Litterbug, some of these you can hear with a full band. I could hear where a full band could be cool. Mm-hmm. But I kept being like, I don't feel that. I want it to be intimate. I want it to be stripped down. This is the album that I want to make. Mm-hmm. So he was really good about finding that balance of like, still finding ways to implement, like almost not really tricking me, but like finding ways to incorporate. Yeah, right. Finding me in a good moment,
Yeah.
It's like, you're killing this dude. Like throw this in there. I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. Just throw it in and see what you feel. He was very good about like just the way he approached it. And, also for me, the experience of recording is super important. Like, how I'm feeling, what's going on. Like, we just had a great time. We hung out, broke bread, as they say, we had a good time. And that's very important to me when we're making a record. Treat Me Different specifically is also funny because I smile when I hear that song because I had too many bottles of wine. I say bottles plural, but
oh man,
it was a good time. But he allowed me to just feel comfortable to be me and have a good time. And so that song makes me smile because like that bass line is one of my favorite bass lines on the whole thing, and I don't remember doing it at all.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So overall, find a producer that you can just have a great time with.
Yeah, a great time, and obviously like you want them to have the chops,
right? The technical abilities,
right? But I already knew that just based off of spending time with him on the first day and just music. But yeah, to me the willingness to push you but also respect you is important. Like find that boundary line and teeter on it the right way with the artist. Because I think being too safe are like, yeah, whatever you say, boss, all the time.
Sure.
Doesn't help anybody. And then, but also being too pushy, like, this is how your record's going to sound.
Right.
You know, he's not either of those things. So it was very good.
Yeah. A perfect balance of those two.
So anybody that wants to record with Caleb.
Hit him up.
He's awesome.
You can also listen to the episode with the Angelics if you want to learn more about Caleb Heiple.
Yeah.
Shout out to the man. What were some of the challenges and what were some of the rewards of making this album?
Well, the challenges were, I guess it goes hand in hand. I think what's cool about this album, I think the challenge is its champion, in the sense of the challenge was to strip it down and not add a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that was
restraint.
right. That was the challenge, is restrain. The challenge is sing really quiet, or the challenge is like be really breathy. You know, there's those, like, cause the TCB record I'm belting, you know? And on this I'm a lot more. There are belting moments on this, but I'm pretty quiet for the most part. But I think that's why I say it's also its champion. I think that's also the best part of the album, is that restraint, and how it's different from anything else I've done, and that shows range and whatever. So I'd say that it's one and the same. Like, the challenge was the best part.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, the challenge ended up being the reward.
Correct.
Because
Right.
you actually followed through on it.
Right. We did it right. We didn't cut corners, to your point earlier. Like, we didn't. We did everything right. You know, we double tracked. When I said I wanted to double track vocals, we double tracked vocals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted to double track acoustic guitar. That takes a lot longer, but it sounded awesome.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Do you have a song that you feel that you are the most proud of? And I know that can be something that changes over time.
Yeah.
But
and
maybe right now.
It probably will. I'd say that compositionally, I think So What is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I wrote that song.
Dude, that first line lives rent-free in my head. It's such a great start to it, so catchy, and the production of it sounds like you're right there in front of me.
Right. It's so awesome. I appreciate that. Also, that song's cool because it's like, not only is it tuned to what I like about that song is it confuses the ear a little bit in the beginning, because it's a half step down, but I think it's even like some sense off. So it's like, it would be very hard to play along to it, because it's like, you know, that's why it has that, like, what key is this song in?
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, I guess it would be F sharp and something else. Like, it's F sharp, but it's
right. But it's a little bit.
It's a little
more,
off too, because I don't
less.
think I was in tune completely.
Funny.
Yeah. So like that, I like that feeling that it gives me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Beasting the Flowerful. We were talking about lyrics earlier, and I really have to focus to write good ones. That song, that was the one that I was saying, like, I just was on a roll. I don't know what it was that day. I remember where I was. I remember everything about it. And the lyrics, like, there's certain lyrics in that song. I say, Beasting the Flowerful, gripping the waterfall, choking. There's just a bunch of, like, very vivid, nature-esque thing. Like, that's not usually what I do at all. There's like, choking a treeless root, taking up all the room. There's just a lot of really interesting lyrics there that are not usually how I write at all. Usually I'm not that mystical or whimsical or
poetic.
Know. Yeah, it was almost like, right. Because I'm really not that way.
Right. When I think of poetic, I mean, I know there's so many different kinds of poeticisms or whatever.
Sure.
But I think about what you mean, like this whimsical, describing nature type thing.
And that's not usually me, and I was very proud of the fact that I did that. Because that's not something that I do. And it happened very naturally too, which you can't beat that. So diary entries, I would say, is those are the three. Diary entries, just because, you know, we could talk about poeticism, whatever. Like, they're almost the polar opposite. Beasting the Flowerful, I'm saying a lot of fluffy, flowery things, whatever.
Yeah.
Diary entries I like because I'm saying so much with very little. Like, I say the same line after every, you know, verse or whatever, and I think it really hits. And then, you know, I just have they're very simple ideas, but I think it says a lot. So saying a lot with a little is always cool to do. It's hard to do.
Absolutely. It is hard to do. To be able to be so concise and clear with just a few words.
Yeah, definitely.
And clever even, you know, that's just a whole other level of...
And makes sense. We were talking about that earlier. Like, it's hard when it doesn't, like, oh, it sounds good, but it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I'm the king of that. I will write so many things that make no sense.
Yeah, it's so easy to be, like, mysterious and conceited and, like, I don't know.
Right. Make it make sense to the listener. Like, you have, that's your job. No.
Yeah.
Right. But for this, I wanted to be like, no, I want like this to be easy to understand. And I was glad that I was able to do that in so few words, or as few as I could.
Yeah.
You know?
which song gave you the most trouble in terms of anything?
Well,
recording, writing.
It was recording Litterbug was the longest. I remember that just being like, maybe it was just like the end of the day. You know how it is. Like,
sure.
I think it was the last song in the first session, and I would just say Litterbug in general because we double tracked vocals. I did some crazy things on the first take or the first go around of the first comp of the vocals, and we're like, well, we have to double track that now.
Right. And you're like,
I was like, I can't do that again.
Yeah.
So I did it, but it took forever. Mm-hmm. And then like we also double tracked the electric guitar on that. And for some reason, electric guitar, like, double tracking, that's harder to me. For some reason, acoustic guitar, I don't know if this makes any sense, but there was more room for error. I don't know how to explain that. I just felt like the room allowed room for error. Like I could play it slightly different,
Just
and it
something
was
about
less
the tone.
noticeable. Yeah, with electric guitar, like I felt like it was very noticeable if I was not doing it the exact same way. And it's also the only thing that's in that song for the most part.
Yeah.
So it was like, that's the thing with all these songs is like, it's obvious if I mess up because there's so little happening.
Yeah, very little room for error.
Right. And then we like the little high guitar part, that's my favorite part of the song. That we worked that out for a while, like figuring out how we were going to do that, how we were going to play it. In general, that song took forever. It's also the longest song on the album, whopping 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Right.
So that one just felt like forever.
Yeah. Do you have a musical territory you want to explore further? Maybe even something from this album that you feel like you touched on that you want to expound upon later.
Right. Well, not to keep talking about Litterbug, but I feel like everything else I've done decently consistent, like acoustic tracks or, country infused, like with The Death of Me, we did that. And obviously classic rock, Give Me Love and whatever.
Right.
And 80s alternative, Bye Bye Love. And then a lot of these songs, I'm kind of getting into that power pop territory, but just stripped down. So Litterbug was the first one I was like, oh, that's kind of dark. Like that's a darker one. And I'd never done that before. And so I'm sure we'll see that come up again. Because I do write songs like that. I just usually don't have the confidence to put them out, or they're usually just not better. Because my bread and butter is that like Beatle-y, power poppy thing.
Sure.
And so I usually just go with those because they're usually better. But like Litterbug's a great song, and it's very dark, and but even in that song, I can't help but throw in the bridge is very Beatle-y in that song.
Yeah.
I
mean, the Beatles is going to be in your DNA, like
it's
no matter what you do.
Doesn't yeah, I can't shake it.
There's no way of getting rid of it.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I just moved to my new apartment, and I was going through stuff, and I found this little Beatles folder that I had made. Like I drew them in all their different eras, and
whoa.
When I was like 7, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's been my mainstay for like almost a decade and a half.
Exactly. I mean, when you're listening to them as a child, like
and then still loving
shake.
it when you get older.
Yeah.
It's like, because I know a lot of people that are like, oh, I used to like the Beatles as a kid,
right?
Or people who found them later in life, or I've just been like, I've been here the whole time, dude.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I listened to them for the first time when I was in like 3rd grade because my dad had the Beatles 1 CD of all their number 1 hits.
That's a classic.
It's awesome.
Gotta have that.
And we listened to that in the car on the way to school, like for a while.
Yeah.
And then you grow up, and for whatever reason, I just kind of felt like, oh, that's what kids listen to for whatever reason.
Right.
And then my friend was like, have you ever heard Helter Skelter?
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell
what is this? This is not the same band as Yellow Submarine.
And he just like, showed me all of these, all the albums, the full albums.
Right.
I only know the hits. And that's when everything changed for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, these guys were the first to do it and fucking crushed.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're not the first, but
the first in a lot of ways.
The first of a lot of things they did first.
Yeah. What's cool about them, I think the biggest thing that I get from the Beatles is obviously the sound itself, but like the whole thing about them is like, what is the sound? Because everything I like about them the most, that I think is the most important thing to me when I'm making an album, is every song needs to be different. Like there's no 2 Beatles songs in my head that are the same. Mm-hmm. Maybe in the early days when they're doing covers,
right.
But like even those, like
after like Help and Rubber Soul.
Yeah. I mean, I even think like on Please Please Me, like, do you want to know a secret? Doesn't sound anything like I saw her standing there to me.
Yeah, true.
You know, like Love Me Do doesn't sound like I want to hold your hand. It's the same energy, but they're not the same songs.
That's very true.
And so yeah, that's the other thing. I'm in love with the whole catalog too. Like I know some people who are just like 65 and onward, which I get. Or not many people are 65 and before, but
I'm a later period Beatles guy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I get that, but I think it's because I grew up with those early ones from a very young age, and there's something about them also that I like. There's something to be said for getting your point across in like 2 minutes or like a minute and 50 seconds. Like that's so appealing to me. Like, you know, those early songs are just like All My Loving, for example.
Right.
Banger. And it's like maybe 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
They got their point across, and that's something
going back to being concise.
Yeah, definitely with this album, I try to do that. Like I said, it's 14 tracks and 37 minutes. So it's every song's hovering around like 2.5 minutes at the most. And so that was another way that the Beatles were inspiring.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, you just mentioned being able to change up that sound. And, you know, I was writing in here, like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is maybe a little nervous to switch up their sound because they're either feel like this pressure to do what's already worked, or maybe they're just nervous about this new thing not quite landing the way they want it to?
Well, I'll say if you're listening to this and you're heeding advice from me, like there's no reason to be afraid if something hasn't worked or not, because we're not there yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm the one giving you advice,
there aren't swaths of fans that are going to be breaking down your door because you know, don't have
and I don't
drums.
mean that in a bad way. Like one time I went, it was in Nashville, and some guy and I were talking, and it was when, you know, I was just going through some stuff and musically, and when we were with the Corduroy Blue, and, you know, he had brought up that, you know, he wasn't a fan of the name or whatever, and I got kind of defensive, but then he made a good point, and he was like, what did he say? He was like, I mean, nobody knows who you are yet. So it's like, why not switch it up? And I just took that and kind of contextualized it and was like, I mean, he's kind of right. Like it's not like, why do I feel like there's so much pressure?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 99.9% of the world doesn't know my music.
Right.
Which is okay. That's an okay fact to understand. Because then actually it's very freeing. Because then you could just try things.
Yes.
Because guess what? Like if something hits, all your friends and your fans that were like the 0.0001 are just going to be happy for you because you're doing well. You know, they're not like over here gatekeeping the sound specifically. You know what I mean? Like, so I would just say, like, don't worry. There's no there really isn't any pressure. Take a deep breath. You're at this great stage of your career, wherever it is. If you're where I am, where Parker is, where anybody else is. If you're listening to this, you're at that stage around there.
Most likely.
Yes. I mean, if you're really famous, shout out.
If you're not, hit me up. Come on the pod.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not, let's get talking. So I just think like there's no pressure. So, and also to combat that, the people who do listen to your music, they want to hear you. I don't think, again, they're not like expecting a sound. They're like, what's he going to do next? In the sense of like, we're going to judge him if he does something different.
Yeah. When you put it like that, it makes so much sense.
And it's like, I mean, I've had this a million times. There are people who don't like this stuff as much that I'm doing. And that's okay. There are people who like this stuff a lot more than TCB. People are going to have their taste. So if you're depending on people to tell you what to do, that's not going to get you very far. Because everybody's opinion is different. You can't please everybody. You just can't. And also it's not going to make you very happy. So, and you got into this because you like it and you're happy and you like making music. It makes you happy. So just do that. Just write whatever. And also I'm a big fan of like good songs aren't genre. A good song is a good song, no matter what the outfit you put it in. You know, like I said, like I'm not one to write heavy or dark songs. And I wasn't going to put one of those on this, but Litterbug was just a good enough song. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to, and that's why a lot of my songs sound unique and different, because I'm not over here like, let's pick the songs that all sound the most similar. Usually it's the opposite. Like, how can I create a vast enough palette, especially with this album, because there isn't drums? How can I add a honky tonky in there?
Right.
How can I add a Treat Me Different? How can I add a Litterbug? Because I don't want this to get stagnant. And that's the other thing. Like, if you're worried about, like, how do I branch out? Like, you should be more worried about what if I keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's a lot scarier to me. I'd rather dud and be like, well, that was cool, he tried something, than be like, I'm getting tired of this, you know, because there's a lot of great artists that I like that I'm just getting tired of it because it's the same thing,
right?
You know,
yeah, I
no
would much rather a band I really like or have loved for a long time try something new and it not be my cup of tea, and you know, just know that they're doing they're trying something new, like,
right,
you know, no shade, but Boy Pablo, you know Boy Pablo? Yeah, he found a sound and he did it a whole lot, and eventually, like, I loved the first thing he ever put out, and then the next thing I was like, oh, this is cool, and then he kept doing it. I was like, it was doing different. The same chorusy effect on your guitar, everything, you know. So, and you know, Mac DeMarco, the God, rules. But you know, I'm glad
after a while.
It did. But you know, and then he puts out 5 Easy Hot Dogs, which is a whole other discussion. That name. But at least, and then he put out like 200 songs.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is not to interrupt you, but the point is he did do something different.
Exactly.
He's most recent too, and that's why he's relevant again.
Whether I like it or not is not really my concern. I'm glad he's doing something different and trying new things.
To be honest, if he didn't do that, I don't think Mac DeMarco would have had his little mini comeback he had with that record.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get people's attention unless you shift. Like, I haven't thought about Boy Pablo in a very long time.
Exactly.
Because nothing, or Khalid is another good example where maybe I'm just not paying attention, but I didn't think that I loved that first record. Mm-hmm. I loved that growing. It was like in my high school years, it was awesome. And then I just felt like it was the same after that.
Right.
And especially if your vocals are in the same range all the time,
totally.
like the music's got to be shifting a little bit. Like, that's what makes John Lennon so good. His vocals are always in that screechy, raspy tenor, but his songs are always different. They're always unique. And he's always got a little more, McCartney might even be better at like doing different, you know, sounds.
I mean, the same guy who did Martha, My Dear is doing Helter Skelter. That's crazy.
Right. But Lennon I really like these days a lot because they're different songs, but it's still a Lennon style song.
Sure.
Where McCartney didn't really have a McCartney style song particularly. I mean, he had little things he would do, but kind of McCartney was awesome. He'd be like, oh, this is a great little funk thing I could do.
Right.
Where
Yeah,
John
McCartney was like very all over the place.
Right.
Lennon maybe had
he had
more
his box.
narrow
He had
view.
his thing, but he still made the songs really good.
Right.
And they're different. They are different.
Totally. So I was asking you earlier before the podcast about Mockingbird Talent.
Yeah.
So this is inform the listeners what Mockingbird Talent Agency is.
Yeah. So Mockingbird Talent Agency is I had some buddies that were like, you know, gigging out, they just needed help, you know, gigging out. And obviously I'm a musician. I like music, but I want to be involved in as many aspects of it as I can. And I, for some reason, like booking myself. Like, I haven't really looked for anybody I mean, you know, I have people helping me here and there, but I like it for some reason. I don't know. That's very uncommon for a lot of musicians to like that process a lot, to like really enjoy it. Who likes to send emails all the time? But I don't know. I think it's something.
I don't think it's that bad. I don't know why people. Bitch about it.
Right. I don't know. Or you know, I can understand the whole I don't have time for it. Whatever. I guess so.
I get that.
But for a combination of those two reasons, I think it's the same way. This is going to be a funny analogy, like same way a gambler, like, you know, when he hits at the casino, it's like that makes the losing. You know, it's the same way. Like when you get a hit on an email or something,
right,
like makes it all worth it.
True.
I can't believe I just compared booking to gambling, but
anyways. But dude, when we finally got that Eastern,
right, it was awesome. Once we finally got that, we were like,
God.
That felt like I just won.
Right.
Won a hand.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so I was just like, well, I got them this gig real quick, and I was like, well, wait, I could, you know, make a little thing out of this, and you know, keep snack money coming in, and keep these bands happy and build the community. And so it started out with one band. Now we have like 20 artists on the roster, and everybody hangs out, and they all met each other through this thing. We just put our first festival together in September, and like, yeah, all these bands know each other now, and they all play in each other's bands, and I'm just happy that I was a part of that, and I still am a part of it. And we're doing like, you know, like a New Year's Eve show at Smith's, and then I think we're also doing one in Athens. The same, you know, 2 different bills, 2 different spots.
Sweet.
All Mockingbird. So
that must be tough to manage logistically sometimes, right?
It is, yeah. And I'm usually really good at it. I mean, we all make mistakes, you know, like, oh, I forgot to confirm that, or sorry, I didn't let you know what load in time was. But I try and be as good as I can about it because I'm good at it for myself. So I want to be good at it for these guys, these people. And also, like, we have a very diverse roster, different types of music, different people, different, you know, everything. Everything's different, which I like. We want to represent the local scene as much as possible in terms of the style, the sound, the look, everything. So I'm really happy, and shout out to my boy Jackson Trifoli. I know you know who that is.
Yes, sir.
That's my boy. He has been a huge help getting it going in Athens specifically.
Cool.
He's just been a huge help in that way.
Yeah, that guy's a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, so we both are. So we were like, let's collab and work together. So he's, you know, having him on the MTA team has been awesome.
What have you learned from having started this agency that you didn't necessarily know before?
Well, I realized I'm really good at it. I didn't realize how good at it I was until you have like 20 artists and you can manage it all. I was like, wait, I could actually, like, I can handle this. You know, so in a good way, it was like affirming that I'm not in over my head.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know if I was going to be or not. I just said, fuck it, let's do it. But I'm able to manage it, and it has given me more of a perspective on like how I was when I was a younger band or a younger artist, whatever. Just, you know, dealing with younger artists. It just I didn't realize some of the tendencies I had or things that I was maybe jumping the gun on. I think that there's a lot of young artists that like just take a deep breath. Like I said earlier, like I think everybody feels so tense, like we got to get famous now. It's like, it's not like that. Like if you get lucky, that's awesome. But that's not something you make happen. That's something that happens to you. Like if you put out a song and it, you know, gets 1 million views or some 1 million listens, you didn't do anything really. I mean, you might have put it on TikTok or something, but like that's something that happens to you to get famous or whatever.
Yeah. It's like, did you put in way more effort to that song than you do all the other ones?
No, it just happened to be the right storm.
Right.
And so anyways, I think with all of that, like whether we were talking about like advice or with these young guys, I just noticed like, dude, take a deep breath. Like, it's okay if you don't play the Georgia Theater tomorrow.
Right.
Like I can get you on the roof though. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
Like seriously, it's like take baby steps to get there. Like you're not. I think it just gave me insight to how I was because I wanted everything now, fast.
Right,
I wanted to be on late night TV, and you want to sell out shows and this and that. You're not there yet, and that's okay. You know, it's good to dream about it. Obviously, have a goal, have hopes and future aspirations, but to want it in that moment, you're not ready for that. And I think that I didn't realize that I wasn't ready for it until I've been working with other bands. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad that basically saying I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did, where those things didn't happen for me because I wasn't ready for those things.
Right.
You think you're tight, but you're not tight enough yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at the time, I thought we were the tightest band I knew. And then you see other bands, you're like, that's tight, bro.
Yes. Yeah. That's a humbling experience.
Definitely. And it has allowed me to, I guess, just notice that I was like that. Because nobody realizes they're being either greedy or over ambitious or jumping the gun in the moment. You don't realize you're doing that. So just working with younger artists has made me realize like, hey, I'm glad that it's worked out the way that it has. And every year I think your expectations go, you know, if I'm not famous by now it's just like, I just like making music. I really just do. That's the point for me. This is it for me. And I think honestly, that is more appealing to people than trying to like hit it big, you know, like, okay guys, do this so I can get to this amount or whatever. That's fine, I suppose. But like, for me, it's just, hey, if you like my music, listen to it. And obviously put yourself in a position to succeed. What I always say is, do your best, but don't try too hard. So put yourself in a position to win, promote yourself properly, and make these songs good. Squeeze every last ounce out of them until they're where they need to be. But don't like try too hard, if that makes sense, or try and make it like you're something that you're not, or promote like something's way bigger than it is, or, you know, make yourself feel like you're famous or whatever. Like, listen, it feels good to be affirmed and liked and wanted by other people. That's an obvious human desire. But just take it easy and take it slow and work hard, but don't try too hard is kind of my whole thing.
Yeah. It's such a fine line.
And like, it's hard for me to dictate it to you, but we all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like that whole try hard thing. Work hard, you know, put your dig your hands deep in and dig into that soil and get everything out that you need to get out. But don't, you know what I mean by trying hard is that stuff doesn't last. So
yeah, try your best to be comfortable with where you're at currently, knowing that you're working hard and doing your best.
Right. And I firmly believe in this industry, like I say, like to get famous, I mean, that takes the right song at the right time in front of the right audience on the right platform. All of that has to be, it's hard to do.
It's like winning the lottery sometimes.
It is. It really is. But to make a living, if you're a talented, two things, if you're a talented individual and you work really hard, it just takes time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Well, it's certainly more likely to happen if you put in the hours.
Yeah, and time is subjective. It could be a year, it could be 10 years. But I'm saying if you're talented and work really hard, in 10 years you'll be a lot further along than you were, when you started.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot further. And yeah, sometimes things don't happen for you, but I think if you understand the industry, understand the times that we're in, how to promote yourself properly, how to, if you have a general grasp on the music business at all, talented and work hard, I think you'll be okay.
Totally. Cool. Well, Atticus, let's take it over to the last 5.
Yeah.
Where you're going to pick 5 questions out of this bowl here.
I love doing it in person, bro.
So much better. Yeah, when we were doing it over Zoom a while back for the Corduroy Blue, I just had the questions written down, which is not as fun as actually.
This is probably around the exact same time we did it last year, too.
I guess you're probably right, because that's when the album
came out in November.
Yes. That's so funny.
Yeah.
We'll have to make it an annual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But all right, let's check question number 1.
All right, let's see. I'm just going to be extra about it. Close my eyes. Dream 3-band bill. Oh, that's awesome.
This one has gotten asked so many times. It's so funny.
Let's do... this is a tough one.
Yeah, lots of options.
Yeah, let's do... I'm just going to go with what my gut was just now. We're going to do Big Star opening for Nirvana, opening up for the Beatles.
I mean, yeah, a huge 3.
It doesn't get bigger.
That sounds
it
pretty
doesn't
sweet.
get better than that.
Yeah.
Because I think Big Star would honestly be the opener because they're the smallest of the 3.
Sure.
And but they'd be honored to have that opportunity. I'm speaking for them. Big Star, if you hear this, have me open for you then.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Are they still around?
They're doing they do revivals type style. So it's like people from the scene of Big Star play, and Mike Mills from REM is like a huge part of it.
Oh wow.
Because like Big Star, like the Replacements, Teenage Fan Club, REM. I mean, none of those bands would exist without Big Star.
Right.
And so Mike Mills being a part of it's really cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be my 3-band bill.
Nice. You came up with that pretty quick. That's a tough one.
I don't. Some people are overthinkers. I'm an underthinker, and that's got me good and bad places in life. But right there, it got me in a good spot.
Yeah, there you go. All right, number 2. Let's see what it is.
I'm an underthinker in general.
An underthinker.
I say a lot of shit I shouldn't. Okay. Unexpected musical influence. I'll say this person because I don't think I listen to him all the time, but it doesn't come out in the music very much. But I love Prince very dearly.
Sure,
Prince is probably my top 5 solo artists, top 10 acts in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's that charisma, that the virtuosity, the image. Yeah, he's a hero.
He is.
But I don't talk about him very much, and I certainly don't look or sound anything like him.
Yeah. I think that can't be understated how influential he was in so many ways, especially in terms of like an image and like a pop star aesthetic.
Right, but he was also like he's the only one I've ever seen like draw the line of like there's obviously famous people like a Kurt Cobain who like really look like they don't want to be famous and see how that went for him, or like people who really enjoy it and relish in it. He had this weird like he looked like he didn't enjoy it, but I think he did.
Yeah.
Somehow, like he's got this stone cold face, but I think he really liked it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't know any people that like rode that line like that.
Yeah. Shout out to Prince.
Shout out to Prince.
All right. Question number 3.
Also. Let's see. Song you wish you wrote. Right now, because I'm looking at Blood on the Tracks, I would say, let me look at this.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about something off this album when I picked it up. Simple Twist of Fate. I wish
that's a good one.
I wish I wrote that song. I think that's just such a good song.
Mm-hmm. I always liked Tangled Up in Blue.
They're both, and they're right back to back. It's like too good. 2 more.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Question number 4 is
Best worst decade of music. Okay.
Ooh, this will be interesting for you. Usually I
like
have a good guess of what the guest is going to say.
I'm going to say this is bad because you just know how I'm a 60s through 90s guy. And so that excludes the 2000s when I say I'm a 60s through 90s guy. And I think the 2000s are awesome. Actually, even more now than I used to. I'm learned.
You've educated yourself.
I'm learned on the verse of the 2000s. But I'd still say the 2000s. That being said, we're still putting the 2000s. I just don't listen to it enough. And
I'm with you there.
I'd say the 60s because
it's the best.
Yeah, because my favorite aspects of 90s music is 60s inspired.
Yeah.
It's like psychedelia, Britpop, some of that, even that twee stuff. That's very like Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
Nico. That's all 60s stuff. And then, you still have your jazz in the 60s. You have the Beatles, the Kinks, the Who, Cream. Doesn't get better than that.
I definitely love the 60s, but if I had to get specific, I usually would do like 66 to 76 or 67 to 77.
Yeah, something like that.
I do allow for that. What I do not allow is is being like, oh, the 20s. And you're like, shut up. You can't name
the roaring
2
20s,
people
like,
from
bro,
the 20s. Yeah.
Nobody is alive right now from that period to even tell you about that.
They're just trying to get away with not slandering a whole decade.
67 through 77 would be my 10 year.
Nice. Yeah.
Because 77 you still get ABBA and Bee Gees and the fun disco stuff starting up.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, dude. Let's wrap it up.
That was fun. This is still fun. I'm saying that was fun.
It's the fun is over now.
Yeah, exactly. Musical hot take.
Oh, interesting. I forgot about that one.
I don't know that this is that hot of a take, but I watch a lot of music documentaries, and seems like everybody likes the recording process a lot, and it's not really my favorite thing.
Really,
I like the writing process the most.
Okay,
by far. It's writing. Playing live, recording for me. I like recording. It just kind of makes me nervous.
Interesting.
Like it's that's how it's going to be forever. And then like my voice is very fragile in the sense of I got a raspy voice, and one song I go too hard on, I'm struggling to do the rest of them. And that's always, I have to think about my breathing, and then the guitar's not in tune. It's it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I like it. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, but I would rather write and record before
or right before.
Right. Sorry. Yes. Write, play, live, record.
Interesting.
So I think that's a hot take. A lot of people like the studio.
Well, one of the other questions in there is in the studio we're playing live, but the secret third option is the writing process.
Yeah, the writing process
that usually happens before
finishing an idea that I love. Nothing beats that for me. Like getting that song out and it's bare bones. That's why I have so many just random scratch demos in my phone, like hundreds, just because that's my favorite part of it.
Yeah, totally.
Just like having an idea, writing a B section for it, and calling it a day. I love that.
I agree. That's an awesome feeling. But to me, nothing beats that feeling of having taken that and then
making it a thing,
constructing it into this whole other world.
I get that.
Taking the seed and letting it bloom into this.
It's just so permanent in that, and which is great. Which is great. But I think when it's at a demo, I kind of just. Obviously,
it can be anything.
It can be anything I want it to be. Right. That potential energy is just like, you can feel it.
Totally. Well, cool. Atticus, thank you again for coming on the pod. I'm excited to play your Square One album release show tonight at Flickr. If you're listening to this, it's already happened. And you better believe it was awesome.
It was awesome.
I hope you have FOMO. And dude, thanks for coming on. I'm excited to, like I said, play the show. I'm excited for everybody to be able to listen to this awesome album now. Beautiful
out now.
fall
Square
album,
One.
especially. So get some hot cocoa with the boys and throw it on.
Dude, I need to do that. We're gonna do that.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, Atticus. Thanks again for coming on, dude. I'll talk to you later.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
It takes me to run.
Thank you again for tuning into the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Remember, not only can you listen to the episodes on Apple Podcast and Spotify, but you can also watch the episodes on my YouTube channel, which is linked in the description below. And on that note, I'll see you guys next time.
Into the fire.